Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Demon Lamb podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me tonight, once again, Grapeviney. Good evening, Grapeviney. How are you?
I'm excellent, Andy. Thank you.
And also joining us, back by popular demand, Supermercado from the @Demon blog on Twitter. How are you?
Gents, I'm great. Thank you for having me on after a win. This is my after a win debut on the podcast.
Well,
Good luck.
I will inform our audience that Supermercado was invited to join us after a loss, and he declined.
That's true.
Shame on you.
It wasn't personal. I just had about 8,000 words of a blog to write, and I hadn't quite managed it by Wednesday night, so I had to dig in there.
Well, we had to turn up and commiserate on air, but we'll let you off this time. A win this week, but before we talk about the win, sad day with news that Demons CEO Peter Jackson announcing his retirement, and it seems like he's going to go out in a similar fashion to Paul Roos and appoint a successor and stick around for a little bit while the new person gets adjusted to the role. Grapeviney, what's your thoughts on this news?
Sad day for the club. Peter Jackson's basically saved us. Most Demonlanders would remember all too well the position we were in when he came in 2013 on the field. Off the field, we were substandard. You could argue our very existence was under threat. Jeff Kennett at the time was certainly calling for us to either be relocated or merged. So the extent to which he's helped the club turn around and to do it in such a short amount of time really is extraordinary, and he deserves every bit of praise that he's getting on the board, certainly.
Well, Supermercado, you wrote a book about the Great Depression. Surely Peter Jackson is part of the sequel to that book, and what are your thoughts?
Well, I think he's also he's a big part of the last 10 years, but a good part of the last 10 years, as opposed to a lot of the other stuff in there that was less successful. I think it really goes without saying that his reign has been an unqualified success as CEO. We've probably got more out of him than we expected. I think it was a 1-year deal that's going to end up stretching to about 6 by the time he was finished. So I think we've probably given him that environment as well that he's enjoying working in, and I think he's brought a lot to the club. So he'll really go down as someone who helped us drag us right up from the bottom, and in conjunction with your Glenn Bartlett's, your board members, because let's not forget when he came in. After that's when we had the Jeff Kennett trying to get a run as the president. We had the potential board challenge by the group that was going to put on sausage sizzles for the kids as their number one policy pledge. And I think, without knowing the in-depth workings of the club, that PJ, I talk like we're best friends, PJ and I, probably had a lot to do with the Glenn Bartlett, getting him in and getting that board together and really strengthening the club from the ground up. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think we all knew this day was coming eventually.
Who would you like to see, or what type of replacement would you guys like to see take over? Do you want someone with more of a business background, someone more football, or somewhere a happy medium, someone who's been involved in sports administration? Grapeviney?
I saw there were calls for Paul McNamee perhaps, but I don't know about that suggestion. Look, you want someone who's as good as Jackson, basically. He seemed to have a very good handle on the football side of things. Obviously had the experience at Essendon, but he's been superb off-field as well in terms of sponsorship particularly, and we've seen that this year. So he's got, whoever does replace him has got very big shoes to fill. I don't know who it's going to be. I haven't seen any names suggested yet.
What was that, Supermercado?
No whiteboards. No video footage of writing on whiteboards. That should be the number one prerequisite in the recruitment process.
I think what's also been good about him, he's obviously worked very hard on the business side of things, turning us around, football department and business-wise. But I think the best thing about it is you didn't really see him. He didn't try and get his mug on TV and any chance he could get. He worked very much in the shadows in a good way, and wasn't trying to get out there and trying to, maybe he did rule with an iron fist, but you didn't know that, you didn't see that, it didn't, there was no controversy surrounding him at any point. So I think that's sort of what we want going forward.
Yeah, I think it's a case of being seen when you need to be seen.
Yep.
And not sticking your nose in where it's not wanted, sticking your nose into the business of other clubs, which can often happen, probably more with presidents than CEOs. But yeah, it's sort of hard to say. You could... There's been a few non-football people who have flamed out in CEO roles recently, but that's not to say that every non-football person's going to do that, because obviously you also want to get someone who's successful. If you're going to get someone who's been in football before, you don't just want someone who ticks that off on their resume and wasn't a success where they were before. So you're already working with a small pool. So odds are you're probably going to end up with someone coming from the outside.
Yeah, one of the other things that I really liked about his tenure there is prior to him coming, we sort of had a bit of a history of everything that happened was sort of leaked into the media. And when he came in, you didn't get anything, well, not a lot, coming from the media before, sort of you heard it from the club. And occasionally it's impossible, to stop those things, but I think I'm attributing a lot of that to him being there.
Yeah, that comes with unity, doesn't it? Yeah. If you have a board or administration that's divided, that's when you get people leaking against each other. When you've got unity, everyone's on the same page, and no one feels the need to go to the media and run off and complain.
Yeah. Yep, 100% agree. So the deal, it says on the official site, it said that the Melbourne Football Club board has been working with Peter Jackson for some time to ensure a smooth succession in the role of CEO. To achieve this, Peter has committed to a handover model where he will remain at the club to work with the CEO elected to oversee a successful transition to the role, and that he's agreed to remain at the club into 2019. So quite happy with that. Sad to see him go. He's done a lot for the club. A lot of people on Demonland are asking for statues to be erected. So we have to find a good spot.
They will never get the quality of his bald head right if they do a statue. It is and I know I've gone on about this at length, even I think it's in the book, the greatest bald head you will ever see in your life. Like, should I lose my hair, that is what I aspire to.
Well,
and if you've never thought about it, go back, Google Peter Jackson and look at all the photos of his head and come back and tell me it's not the best bald head you've ever seen.
Well, I'm on the official site at the moment, and there's a picture of him smiling in this story. But right next to that, there's a couple of advertisements, and Nathan Jones is there. And I must say, I think Nathan Jones has a pretty good bald nut.
That's a good head. It's a good head, but it lacks the shine that you'll see on Peter Jackson's head.
Well,
there was one night they interviewed him when we played in Darwin, and it was like he'd been put in one of those bowling ball shining machines. It was magnificent.
Must be the humidity bringing out the best in that. Sad to see him go. But thank you. Well, just officially from all of us at Demonland, thank you, Peter Jackson. And look, it'd be lovely if we can get him a premiership, real nice bookend to his tenure there.
It'd be nice if he can come on the Demonland podcast before he finishes up his tenure.
Peter, yeah, please.
Or maybe after he can tip the bucket.
Yeah. Leak.
Yep, Peter, you're welcome to come on. If anyone has contact information for Peter Jackson, send it my way. If you would like to join us tonight to talk about either Peter or the game or the upcoming games, anything you want, 039016 3666. That's 039016 3666, or try us on Skype, Demonland31. Search for it we'll bring you on as soon as we can. Fellas, another victory at our fortress. I know Supermercado, you have no love really for that ground, but
I do now.
You do now. It's and I might just play something. I had something queued up on YouTube. This is Jonesy post match. Let's just have a listen to what he had to say.
Well, Jonesy, a great win. No longer a hoodoo here. It's a great spot for the D's to play.
I reckon we love playing here now, to be honest. I think it suits the style of game that we play, and particularly, you get a lot of reward for the style of game we play at this ground. So, it was funny listening to that, particularly outside the criticism of that. But we're on a bit of a roll here now and actually enjoy playing here. So it's good to get a couple of results 2 weeks in a row and on to the next one now.
So Jonesy acknowledges that our game plan suits Etihad. He didn't quite come out and mention the MCG not suiting it, but we talked about it last week on the podcast, Grapeviney.
Well, just as the club is finally warming to Etihad, I've had enough of that stadium. It is an absolute dump for a whole host of reasons.
All right, go for it.
And Sunday brought them all out together. Large swathes of reserve seats for members who either didn't turn up or don't exist. I suspect it's the latter. Many seats up on the top level where you can't see the scoreboard because the beams from the roof are in the way. The food is more expensive than the G. The hot chips come in an open tray, which means they get cold within a minute. And worst of all, and I think this is the first time I've experienced this at a home and away match, the Saints were playing music after each goal on the weekend. Are our attention spans that short that we need to be quote-unquote entertained in the 30 seconds that it takes to get the ball back to the centre? It's absolutely criminal what they did on Sunday. It doesn't build the atmosphere. It kills it, drowning out the crowd noise, and it should be banished from the game.
And I do know there are some Kilda fans in my circle that are very scathing of that as well, and quite vocal back to the club about how much they hate it.
It's AFLX style, isn't it? Soon you'll have flashing goalposts and smoke and flamethrowers after each goal.
I forgot that they were doing it at first. So when they kicked that first goal, it was like, Jesus, what's going on? It was the roof was opening above my head or something.
The people around me weren't impressed, that's for sure. No. Nor was I.
Now, does winning not make all that hell that you have to put up with at Etihad drift away?
Well, I must say,
the rest of the day was fabulous.
Come to it now.
Sorry, what was that, Supermercado?
Sorry, I was going to say, I personally have probably come around to it more recently. Probably just because I like the roof being closed. I don't know why. I can't explain why I've got that particular fetish for the roof being closed. And it's also a lot easier for me to get to now than the MCG. But probably winning there is what really, really brings it home. That's the most important thing.
Well, we can't get too used to that ground because I believe we only play one more time there. So against the Bulldogs in a couple of weeks, but that'll be it. So we've got to start, adjusting to the larger surfaces of the MCG where we play the majority of our games. Now, can I make a suggestion? Can we, as the home team, do we have a choice of how big the ground is? Can we bring the seats in a bit closer?
Cones.
Yeah.
Traffic cones in.
Well, I noticed I was watching the Geelong game on Friday night, and they mentioned something that the Geelong ground is 21 metres shorter in the width than the MCG. Could that be true?
Does that mean we're going to dominate it?
It's also the longest ground.
It's the longest ground around. That might
so it's longer but narrower.
Much narrower. That's
Yep.
That's a huge difference. But yeah, as you said, Supermercado, maybe we will dominate when we do play Geelong later in the year. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves just yet. Let's talk about the game. It was, I think we died in the arse a little bit at the end, but that could be due to the short breaks we've been subjected to because of the Anzac Day fixture. But the 3 quarters before that were pretty impressive, and we had a number of players that were really good. I'll start with Angus Brayshaw. Supermercado, what did you think of Gus?
Yeah, that was great. That was clearly his best game, probably since his rookie season. And just getting some continuity back in his career, I think, has been really important for him. Getting a few games in a row, getting to warm into things. He looked much more comfortable than he has recently. Obviously spent a lot more time in the middle, and really showed what an impact player he could be. It was he also had that dubious bounce that didn't come back. But other than that, you probably don't expect 100% disposal efficiency from him. So you can wear a couple of loose ones every game. But he looked really comfortable in traffic. He was great positioning. And I think it was an excellent trial for the rest of the season.
I thought there were a few times where him and Maxi worked beautifully in the middle, a few palm down straight to him, and a quick kick out of the centre. I thought it was great, Viney. What do you think of Gus?
Yeah, look, that's where he belongs. Obviously, the last 2 weeks he's been superb in the middle. It's so good to see him getting the ball and driving it out and forward. That bounce was strange, wasn't it? I presume it's something to do with the surface, not with his bouncing technique, because it happened on another occasion, I think, during the game, didn't it? Or the ball
think
just,
thinly veiled concrete would promote the bouncing of a football.
Yeah, but good for him. It's so good to see him back playing his best footy. As Supermercado said, back to really what we saw in his debut year, which was really good.
His form coincided. I'll just jump on our show notes just a tiny bit to an article that appeared in the Herald Sun, and I'm not surprised that the media sort of pull out these articles just after he has a great game. But the article was talking about him putting his contract negotiations on hold, but the article did not mention. Did not have any source, did not even, it didn't cite a source, it didn't have a statement from Brayshaw or his manager. It just, the only line that actually referred to anything about contract negotiations, which the clickbait title of the article alluded to, said, the Demon, meaning Brayshaw, has made clear he wants to stay at Melbourne, but he's likely to hold off on signing a new deal for at least another month after starting the year in the VFL team. I mean, that's just clickbait at its finest. Yeah, it's making a story out of nothing. It's something that really shits me about the media at the moment. But running a website, I realise the value in clickbait. But that's...
So is the suggestion there effectively that he's not going to sign a contract now because he thinks that in a month's time his price will have gone up because he will have played 4 more good games? I'm not really sure that's how football contracts work. It's must be more complicated than that. That he's not pushing back a contract over the table now and waiting for the one to come in a month and go, ooh, I like that price better, and then sign that. There's got to be more complication to it than that.
Well, it goes both ways, doesn't it? Because Melbourne would also be sort of careful given his history, of concussions and all that. So it sort of goes both ways. They wouldn't want to sign him up to a huge deal now, and he could get injured or any stuff like that. But it works both ways, and it's not as simple as saying either of those two things. So
no, but he has come from a position where he had a very ordinary year last year because of the injuries. So his value is at a low base at the moment. And he probably thinks with a good season under his belt, it's not that the offer's going to be hugely different, but I think he'd rather put some good footy under his belt, and then he is in a stronger position to negotiate with the club. But it's Yeah, it's sneaky of them to not mention the fact that I think twice in the past 2 weeks he's virtually said that he wants to stay on at Melbourne, and there's no indication that he wants to go anywhere else. So it is absolutely fake news.
Yeah, and I
think Tom Norris reported it 2 weeks ago, didn't he? The same sort of thing.
Yeah, I think so. And look, it's not like a Mitch McGovern situation where he's probably got suitors coming at him from all corners. And as you said, Grapevine, he has stated on a podcast, I think it's the AFL podcast that he's on, afl.com.au. I think he wants to remain a D, and, you know, I've got no problem with him and the D's sort of waiting a couple of weeks till they sign something.
Yep.
Probably the benefit being that his brother plays about as far away as you can get. So surely no one is the bond is not close enough that anyone's going to sign up for 6-hour, 8-hour round trips every 2 weeks just to play with their brother. Whereas if his brother played in Sydney, perhaps, or for another Victorian team, you'd probably be more worried about him potentially having a look at that.
Yeah, his family's here, and it's a large family, and yes, the 2 brothers are over in WA, but there's a whole swag of Brayshaws in the southern suburbs, I believe. So, but I think that's a bit overplayed, all that, isn't it?
Having said that, I read an article this week that his parents actually didn't go see him play at Etihad the other day. They went to the MCG and watched his brother play.
Maybe there's a split in the family.
Well, I think they
come over at 3/4 time. They wouldn't have missed anything.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can understand that though. His folks, you know, his younger brother playing probably, you know, they don't play many games in Melbourne, so I can understand them going to watch him play. Got no problem with that. Clayton Oliver, the handball king. How good is this guy? I'm not concerned. Are you guys concerned about over handballing?
No, not when you're that good at it.
Because the commentators every time he went near the ball, they sort of made a little bit of a big deal out of it that he's handballing. But he's just such a great extractor of the ball, and I think at times he's too quick for his own teammates. He did a couple of really classy, sneaky things, and they just weren't ready for it. But that'll come with time, I guess.
And this is the stupid thing about AFL stats, and I wrote about this on the blog this week, that just looking at it and saying he had 28 handballs, that's too many, or is that too many, is just idiotic without looking at the handballs and looking what they did. Mm-hmm. There could be other players. We could have had 28 total handballs amongst all the other players that were wasted, and there was probably a couple of Oliver ones as well, working in that tight confines. You're not going to hit them all, but it's playing to his strengths. And we have seen when he gets out in the clear to kick as well, he actually is a good kick, good decision maker with the kicking. So it's not like he's just doing it because he can't kick. So I think when you look at it closer rather than just looking at the stats, absolutely no problem whatsoever. There's this article up on Fox Sports tonight about his handballs, and there's an animated GIF of the one-handed pickup and quick dish off, and it's if anyone thinks that was a waste, they need their head read.
Yeah, I posted that on Facebook, not the GIF, but just the vision of it, and that was just superb. That pickup, one-handed pickup, straight with the other hand out, is just beautiful to watch. Almost
without looking.
Yeah,
like he knows Brayshaw's there, but he doesn't have to look for it to be there.
Yeah, he just knows. It's instinct. That can't be taught. That is pure just football. You're born with that. You're either born with it or you don't have it at all.
It should be celebrated. We keep, waffling on about congestion and, the game not being open enough. He's there cracking packs to pieces with the handball. So rather than trying to get a story out of him about handballing too much, he should be getting an award for bringing the ball into the clear.
Well, there was a stat that one of the AFL sites put up today, perhaps you saw it. I'm just scrolling through my timeline here on Facebook. Yeah, here it is. He has had 6 games with 20-plus contested possessions in his first 42 career matches. Okay, so 6 20-plus contested possessions in 42 games. 19 players have done that in one game. Judd and Fife have had 2 games with 20-plus contested possessions in that time. No one with, and Cripps as well is up there with Clarry. He's had 5 games with 20-plus contested possessions. So Oliver in the clear lead there with some classy names behind him. It's pretty impressive. Kid's only just 20, I believe.
Nothing to worry about there.
Yeah, give him a 10-year contract. Sign him up. Grapeviney, I know you're a lover of Clarry.
Yep. He's good around goals, isn't he, too?
Kicked a beauty, yeah.
Kicked a nice one again on the weekend, and he's kicked quite a few where he really hasn't had a lot of time.
Yeah, off one step almost.
He just seems to nail them every time, so he's just only going to get better and better. So definitely not fussed about the handballs, that's for sure.
And he's locked away under contract till 2021, so I'm assuming he's on a reasonable wicket, but no matter how good it gets in the next couple of years, we should be somewhat insulated against having to pay everyone else.
If you look at social media, there's a few young guys who obviously love playing together. So he and Petrarca and Brayshaw and Jack and Jesse, to some extent, all regularly tag each other in their pictures and post photos of them celebrating together. So that also bodes well for for keeping him at the D's in the future.
Yeah, there was a beautiful photo that I think they all posted the other day of it was Petrarca, Oliver, Hogan celebrating, which was just I'm getting it printed at huge size and getting it framed and putting it in my bedroom somewhere because it's.
Is that just for the funny face that Petrarca does in the background while he appears to be tweaking his nipples?
He's always got a funny face on track. We'll just go back to Brayshaw and track. There was a thread, I thought a bit of a ridiculous thread on Demonland. Did I have it on our list? I don't think I did. That comparison, trying to compare Petrarca and Brayshaw and which one's the more well-rounded footballer. Grapeviney, what was the thread? Do you recall?
Yes, well, it was that. It's who's the more rounded player.
Yeah.
And as a number of people pointed out in the thread, they're quite different players. So why would you compare them? And they actually complement each other. So we're lucky to have them both, basically, because they're totally different players.
Can't we just be happy with having both of them without having to try and choose one child over the other?
That's the thing in football. Everyone always wants to have a win. It's like trades and drafts. Just because one team drafts someone at 1 and one team drafts someone at 2, they can both be happy. But that's not the way we talk about it. Everyone's always got to be a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason Demonland exists.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess in this case of this draft, we were the winners and St Kilda were the losers.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's had a horror run. He's got his own health problems, but we definitely came up, even without those, I think we've come out the winner on that one. And even if you judge it in 10 years' time, I think we'll still have come out the winner on that one. So,
shout-outs to Destroy All, who nicknamed Paddy on the weekend the Incredible Bulk, which I thought was harsh but fair. So I like that one. That's a good one.
That was a good one. We'll mention the next player, Gorney. Just he's fantastic. I'll go out and say if he continues playing like this for the rest of the year, I've got no doubt he'll be All-Australian. A few weeks ago, everyone was talking about all the ruckmen and, there's so many great ruckmen around, but I think he's clear ahead of the pack of that group of ruckmen that were being bandied around.
Well, the age had him. He was one of the top 9 ruckmen in the league, which, as an exclusive club of only 50% of the league's ruckmen. So he can win All-Australian or the Brownlow, but nothing will top that incredible accolade bestowed upon him by our friends at Fairfax.
And I also, and I'll go out on a limb and say, if we win, 14 plus games this year, I think he might be close to winning a Brownlow. Early days, I know, but I think he would feature in votes most weeks when we win. The way he's playing at the moment, he's just. I think he's
up there. He's up there on the leaderboards of the coaches.
Yep, I was going to mention that.
Coaches' votes and the papers as well.
Yeah,
and he does more than just your traditional ruckman thing as well. And I think that's where umpires would see that, where he floats back into defence and
taking marks into
takes
defence.
a mark, goes forward. Obviously, had some problems with the kicking.
He's kicked a couple of goals this year, though.
Exactly, but he just gives that extra target as well. There's also times where he's gone down there and he hasn't marked it, but just his mere presence has caused enough chaos in the opposition defence to allow somebody else in. So I think having that, being able to use him almost as an extra defender and an extra forward, one is puts his value through the roof as a player, and two is really noticeable for umpires and people giving out votes and awards.
Yeah, and I think having T-Mac back in the team has allowed him to sort of go forward a little bit while T-Mac's gone up the ground. So it's, I'm very happy with the situation at the moment in terms of Gorney. Jesse Hogan. We'll talk about the incident in a second, but let's talk about his game first. He's still racking up a lot of possessions. Playing well up the field, gets quality possessions when he gets it. I'm wrapped with the year he's having so far.
Well, he's getting midfield numbers in terms of the ball, but still kicking, 2.5, 3 goals a game. I think he's averaging, so on track to kick 50 goals. And if he's getting 25 touches a game, then that's extraordinary. He generally uses the ball really well. So. Is he the next Nick Riewoldt in terms of having that huge tank and just being able to do an absolute mountain of work, which Riewoldt was renowned for?
And now that he's got a target to aim at, not just McDonald, but even Gawn floating through there, he's always been useful going up the ground. But if you look at the Richmond game, for instance, when he went up the ground to get the ball,
there was no Hogan
he had no one to kick it to. And when he stayed forward, unless we won it out of the centre, we couldn't get the ball to him because there wasn't that link player. So I think then it was kind of a bit iffy. He was good numbers. He was playing well, but it didn't really suit us because we just lacked that link player. But now that you got McDonald in there as well, I think it's a good combination between the two of them.
I read somewhere that I think he's one of 7 maybe players this year who have kicked a goal in every game. So that's what he's there for, and he's getting a lot of possessions and he's still kicking goals, as you said, Grapeviney. So that's what we want out of him. Let's talk about the incident that certainly the media made a mountain out of, and even once we had footage later on that sort of exonerated him, no one, I think, except BT sort of came forward and said they were wrong. I must admit, the first time I saw the footage of it, I must need a new prescription, but I just saw, all I saw was really the sort of the bump, the hip and shoulder. I thought he initially just sort of flew back and was faking it, but then when on closer inspection, I could see that he copped one in the throat, which certainly wouldn't tickle. I thought the media was very harsh in the wording of their thing, everything that they said about it, taking a dive, and no one sort of tracked it back later on.
Usual clickbait again, the old clickbait.
But I think it went further than being clickbait. I don't know. I thought it was a little bit nasty. I don't think it was even clickbait.
Well, I think this was the reverse of the Oliver one in Perth, in that repeated viewings actually helped him.
Yes.
Because obviously once you saw it, certainly where I was, I had my back. Hogan had his back to me, so I thought when I saw it, I thought, oh my God, we're onto something here. We're never going to hear the end of this. But when you actually do see that, especially the goal line angle. Where he obviously was stunned by someone, jamming a hand into his windpipe. There's certainly no question there.
The other clue was that the umpire that awarded the free kick was right on the scene and facing it. So
not only said,
there was no sort of question of him being fooled by Hogan. He saw the whole thing very clearly.
He not only said, you hopped him in the throat. He actually motioned with his hand up to his throat, choking himself, saying that's what you did. And I can understand people just seeing that footage once might think that he took a dive backwards, but the commentators, and I'll name them, Lloyd and Bartell and Damien Barrett on one of the AFL online shows that they've got, had the footage playing for them, saw it multiple times, and still were accusing him of diving. And sorry, are you telling me that Matthew Lloyd was getting high and mighty about someone taking a dive? He did. He even admitted...
Can we pull out the footage of that Alistair Nicholson incident?
Well, he even admitted that he would dive, and he's sort of admitted that he's a bit ashamed of that. But even watching the repeat viewing, and they didn't have that behind the goal footage at the time, but you could clearly see that even if you watched it multiple times, that he was hit. So I don't know what they've got against Jesse, but no one was talking about at the time that Carlisle should have anything to answer for. They were focusing on blaming the victim. But you know what? We've got to get used to that because it happens all the time.
And he diplomatically decided to miss the goal just so it didn't rub it into St Kilda.
What do you think of that? I can understand from the angle, a tight angle, not going back for a drop punt and doing that kick. But what do you think about it? It wasn't straight in front, but it's pretty close to it. What do you drop punt?
By the time he ran around, it was pretty much straight in front. Yeah. So it's probably not one of the worst reset shots worst shots from that distance that I've ever seen. The fact that it only even snuck in for a point.
It was pretty
but
bad.
His kicking's been good this year. Didn't cost us the game. No big drama. Move on.
Grapeviney, should he have had a drop punt?
I don't mind from that position doing the snap. The execution was terrible, obviously. But as Supermercado said, his goal kicking's actually been pretty good this year. His run up on the normal drop punt is a lot more fluid, the action, and he's kicked 17-8 for the year, so they're very good numbers.
Clint Biscuit in the chat room said he loved that Mahoney, I always say that when I see the name written. Marnie and Goodwin came out and defended Hogan. I didn't see Josh Marnie. I'm sure he probably did, but can't recall seeing that. But I did see Goodwin today come out and defend it. But there were a lot of people on Demoland thinking that the club should have come out a lot earlier and sort of defended it. What do you think about the club sort of coming into bat? Should they get on the front foot and, the coach coming out and batting for the player in that case, or just ignore it?
No, I don't think that they needed to do any more than they did. It died away quickly and it was done. Jesse tweeted about it saying goalpost footage, as in go and have a look at the goalpost footage. So, no, why keep the story alive?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Tackle it as it comes, but no need to get to total siege mentality at this stage of the season.
Yeah.
If anyone would like to join us on the podcast, ask a question or just give your take on anything we've talked about tonight, 03 9016 3666. And as I was saying that, someone is calling in. Good evening. Welcome to the Demoland podcast. Who am I talking to?
It's Chris.
It's Chris. Okay, g'day. How you going?
Yeah, pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, not too bad. What do you want to talk about?
I'm talking about Jordan Lewis.
Okay, go for it.
Mate, a couple of weeks ago, he had an absolute shocker, making terrible decisions, and I think this weekend he did a little bit better. But I'm wondering how far away we are before Lewis is not in our best 22.
Supermercado, you want to tackle that one?
Well, I've been on record this year that I'm not a massive Lewis fan. I agree that I thought he was a lot better on the weekend, though you of course have to adjust for the quality of the opposition. Probably the question is who would replace him if we got rid of him now. I tend to think he and Vince. I know Vince is out of contract at the end of this year. I would have thought that he would pull up stumps at the end of this year. Lewis has got one more year. I'm not sure if we're at this stage, 7 rounds into the second year, that we're going to get right through the third year. But it's just a matter of not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. If we've got someone to replace him, are we comfortable with a Wagner going down there? Are we comfortable with Salem being down there? If we are, then I think we should start to look at moving on. It's almost like on a lesser scale, Wiedemann versus Pedersen. At the moment, I would prefer Pedersen on just a footballing for reasons, but you got to look at the future. So I agree. Look, I think Lewis and Vince should both go at the end of this year. But just for where we are right now, I just wonder if we've got someone who's gonna bring that same experience and hopefully that calm to the back line that we need.
Grapevine.
Well, if you think about it, if Salem had been fit, it would have been an interesting discussion at the selection table, because the 2 weeks prior he was terrible, and his behaviour and his leadership in inverted commas on the field was woeful as well. And so I think you got to get games into guys who are going to be the future of the club rather than a bloke who's showboating on 360 every week.
I think that's unfair criticism. That's very good publicity for the club sponsors, which are plastered all over Lewis's shirt and not particularly professionally sewn on. It seems it looks like it's a bit of a home job. But I think Supermercado's right, as in who have you got that's going to replace those 2 players? Salem presumably will come back this week. I don't think it's going to be Vince or Lewis that makes way for him. So, I still see them as part of the best 22, mainly because I don't think we've got certain replacements for them at this stage.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's out yet, but I think Goody's got to put him on notice that what we got him for was leadership and some good decision-making skills down back, and we can't have him running hot and cold when we could be putting games into other people later on in the season, depending on how well we go.
Yeah, I think we just got to get through these next 2 weeks. Hopefully, within the next 2 weeks, get ourselves a bit of a foothold in the 8, and then potentially start to look at what we can do. Give people enough time to really fit into the team as well. But I think it's so crucial that we win these next 2, considering our run home. That I would probably leave both of them in the side for now. But I think, definitely in the background, you would very much hope that they were looking at what the future is to replace both Lewis and Viney.
Yeah, well, we've definitely got to win these next 2, that's for sure.
Oh,
yep.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to contribute, Chris?
Not tonight, guys. I'll definitely call in again. Loving the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. We love hearing from other Demonlanders. Thank you very much for the call, Chris. And that was great.
Just a note on Vince. I was thinking about this today. There's a fair bit of criticism around on him these days. And look, he's not the player he once was, but hasn't he been amazing for this club in the time that since he's come over? He's really, more than anyone, been the bridge on field between the dark years and these lighter years. And although his form, has dropped off, which you'd expect from a player getting on, he's been a super, super player for the Melbourne Football Club. Won a B&F and played a lot of good games for the Demons.
And he, of course, is now our most reported player in the history of the club. He's recently pushed past Rod Grinter to, I think it's 12 reports in his time now.
But that includes his time with Hawthorn, though, doesn't it?
No, this is Vince.
Oh, sorry, Vince.
I'm talking about.
And does that not include...
No, this is entirely at Melbourne. So he's been reported 12 times. He's got a bit to catch up on Grinter, though. He's been reported 12 times for four games out, and Grinter is 11 for 31 games out.
Yeah, but they don't give the type of penalties anymore than they
seasonally
used to.
Adjusted. Bernie's, a lot of Bernie's ones have been sort of piss weak things like umpire contact and wrestling and things like that.
He plays his 100th game for the club later in the year as well, so...
father, son, here we come.
Father, son, here we come down the track. I think he got married earlier this year, so stand by.
Yes.
Yeah, we've certainly got more than we bargained for from pick 23, a pick 23 swap, which of course was the Sylvia compensation selection. Yep. So we're probably lucky to get that. So if we get 100 games, I mean, we've already had good value out of Vince, but we get to 100 games, we can absolutely say that's been a roaring success of a trade.
Who did Adelaide pick up with that pick? Am I stretching your football knowledge with that one?
Yeah, because it comes from a club that's not Melbourne.
Yes,
so
okay.
I'll get back to you.
Yes, I'd like to know. All right, so that was... Yep, thank you for the call. If anyone else wants to call, 03 9016 366 or try and Skype us Demonland31. We've also got a chat room if you are listening to this live at the moment. We've got over 100 listeners live at the moment, so we've got a chat room at demonland.com/podcast. If you're signed up at Demonland, you can get in there, chat, and you can ask a question. That way we sort of peruse the chat room and pull out some questions. And Cliff Biscuit has just said he thinks it was Matt Crouch. Ouch.
Yes, you're right. It was Matt Crouch.
Well, there you go.
And I know, looking back to one of the people who'll be listening tonight, my work colleague, who's known on Twitter as 4i Pig, I remember that year we were both extraordinarily keen on getting Matt Crouch, and we were very disappointed when the D's didn't get him. But obviously we didn't have a pick for a while after that, so it would have been very lucky if he'd slipped all the way down. But yeah, 4i Pig, he will remember our office conversations about Matt Crouch.
All right, well, that was one that got away, but we've had many of those. But anyway, Vince has been good for us too, so I'm not going to cry about that. I thought Michael Hibbert had a good game. He's sort of returning to that amazing form he had last year. He did some good things when he got the ball off half-back. He sort of was evading St Kilda players left, right, and centre. I thought he was good. You guys agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, backline's playing really well together now. Lever, Nev back to his very best Super Nev. So, running back with the flight of the ball and getting smashed by the incredible bulk, that was so gutsy from Jets.
And especially considering his history with concussions, which was steadfastly ignored by all the commentators, going straight to, and fair enough, to McCartan's recent issues. But Nev, 4 or 5 years ago, Nev was, in the position of being one hit away from having to retire. So I'm not sure if, the few years without a concussion gives you a bit in the bank. But certainly when he had that collision, I thought, God, that I hope he's not seriously hurt.
We've got another caller on the line. Good evening. Welcome to the Demonland podcast. Who am I talking to?
Oh, good evening there, Demonland, fellow Demonlanders.
Hello.
Don't make me angry.
All right. What would you like to talk about tonight? Don't make me angry.
Oh, I was very angry about a few weeks ago after we lost to Richmond, and I thought I didn't want everything to be true about our off-field woes about, the stupid camp and stuff like that. But the last 2 weeks, I've become a lot more happier. The team has definitely didn't make me angry in the last 2 weeks.
Well, that's what winning sort of does. But just wait, we could have a bad loss, and you'll be back to that your angry self. What in particular did not made you happy about us rather than being angry?
Oh, just we disposed of two very ordinary sides, which we haven't been able to do in the last few years. Whenever we come against the ordinary sides, we stoop down to their level and quite often get beaten. So, we beat, Essendon and St Kilda, who are two absolute rebels. And this conversation, hopefully it finally stops where they keep on comparing Melbourne and St Kilda together as if they're on the same path. But I reckon Saints, this is their rock bottom. They actually haven't hit rock bottom yet until this year.
Yeah, I think the Saints losing Rewalt and Montagna certainly hasn't helped them. We know what it's like to sort of lose a lot of experience at once, and it's sort of set us back almost a decade, which you've documented, Supermercado. But St Kilda, I don't think they can be uttered, compared to us being uttered in the same breath at the moment. I think we're on a completely different trajectory than they are. So,
And I think where we're going right now, where we didn't for so many years, is we have got players that you could legitimately see as being called stars. Now, the back end is probably still a bit ropey in places, but your Olivers, Hogans, Gorns, especially, that's what we didn't have even 2010, 11 when we were all right. We just lacked that star player. And I think if you look at St Kilda now, they've got a few good players, a lot of sort of anonymous, generic players, but they've just lost the star power of having those players you just know who are going to be good week in, week out. So I think they've probably got a couple of years of being towards the bottom in their future.
Amazing what confidence does, isn't it? Because I've watched St Kilda a few times this year, and their scoring and goal kicking has been a real issue. But the times that I've seen them, it seemed to be because they weren't getting the ball in good spots in forward 50, so they were kicking from either a long way out or on an angle or both. They missed some absolute sitters against us. That happens every game, once or twice, but they would have had half a dozen shots from, straight in front, 30 out, and they absolutely blew them every time. So it's incredible, incredible how your confidence can take a hit that way.
Confidence. Good to see another side being psychologically tortured.
Confidence is a wonderful thing. Don't make me angry. Is there anything else you want to point out about the game or anything else?
Just one thing that did make me angry was after the St Kilda game where we outplayed them for 98% of the game, and when the game was all over, we had that 51-point lead. There was 3 minutes left, and just like the week before, when we had Essendon's 48, points up, and it was 3 minutes to go, and then all of a sudden Essendon and St Kilda did the same thing. All of a sudden they started running hard just for those few minutes, just to get the last few goals, and then I go on the post-game thread on our Demonland, and the first 2 pages is everybody's, instead of going about how well we played, almost every single post was, those 2 goals we let St Kilda kick in the end, we can't finish sides off. And that was all you read for the first 2 pages. Did you read the post-game thread? And the first 2-3 pages just about the last 2 minutes of the game where the other team decided to run hard for the first time in the whole game, and that's all you read.
There's a lesson in that, and that is don't read the first 2 pages of the post-match discussion thread. It doesn't matter whether we've won or lost. Those first 2 pages are nothing but rants.
Well, look, you can understand it because, that's that's the freshest thing in everyone's mind. And look, percentage cost us last year, so I can understand people are venting about that. But you've also got to look at it. We've had a pretty hectic schedule the last couple of weeks. I think we've played 3 games in 12 days. You can understand that the team's going to sort of drop off a little bit, but it is. I don't like us giving up those goals, but I sort of can understand how it happened, and I hope it doesn't bite us in the bum later in the year.
I think the important thing about the game on the weekend is that we didn't really stop. I think it was more of a case of, the frustrating thing for me was that we had a number of opportunities to kick more goals where we had either players streaming forward or players opening forward 50, and we seemed to muck up every one of them. So, as I say, I don't think we stopped so much as just missed out on a few opportunities to perhaps kick a few more.
And that was also with St Kilda, right? They were at least 2 down on the bench, possibly 3, after Brayshaw carved that bloke up with the bump. But we have got a pretty woeful record over the years of taking advantage of teams that lose a number of players. But he's hoping that sometime in the near future we might get on a roll and, put a team away. Like, I'm not suggesting we're going to win a game by 100 because we just don't do that kind of thing. But get a run on in the last quarter and turn that 40-point win into a 80-point win or a 90-point win. I think it's coming, but not necessarily saying it's going to come against Gold Coast or Carlton, because I know Carlton give us a lot of trouble. But I think this year, I'm hoping that there's going to be a time where we can do that and really just get a run on at the end of a game and just make a statement.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Anything else making you angry? Don't make me angry.
Oh, no. I think, well, at the moment, everything's just rosy, just absolutely rosy at Demon Land, better than home life. But anyway, that's another conversation. And, so let's go D's. And he's pumped this Gold Coast, and I think Carlton are going to beat by 80 points. We just got to. So. If we're going to win any game by 80 points, that's the game we've got to win, because Carlton are close to the most useless side in the competition with all the injuries they've got and how inexperienced they are anyway. So
they
anyway,
just have
night,
a habit of making it difficult for us, Carlton. Even those 2 we won last year were both struggles. And, of course, the couple we lost late in the season the 2 years before. I'm very much hoping that you're right, and this is where we'll stomp somebody. But, yeah, they just traditionally give us problems.
Yeah, my Melbourne, my MFC SS, the Melbourne Football Supporters Syndrome, is kicking in about this Carlton game. I'm really worried about it. I've got a lot of mates who are Carlton supporters, and I really hope we're not their first win of the year. That would absolutely kill me.
How about their snazzy new away uniform?
The grey number?
Which has been described as a pyjama grey with denim pockets, I believe, on the back of the shorts.
Well, Supermercado, you've had a lot to say on Twitter about our disco number, which
Disco Blue.
We're still undefeated in this year. What do you think of Carlton's number?
Oh, it's a disgrace. It's up there with our sort of white and silver effort from a few years ago. That was just a crime against fashion. But yeah, I love the disco jumper. I'm not suggesting it should replace the real one. And it's probably because I came in just after its initial run in the 80s, so I'm not scarred by the failure of its initial run. But it gets me going. It's like hearing, "Come on, Demons" at the start of the show here. It just gets me going. I can't elaborate any more on why I love that jumper so much, but it's really got me going this year.
Yeah, I like it too. Our game against Carlton in a few weeks, I believe it's their home game.
God, watch out. Match day experience alert.
There you go.
They're going to have you seen there when they have the huddle and then they have these people running around them waving flags while all the players are in the huddle, and one of them's the bloke dressed as, Mr. Carlton.
Captain Carlton.
It's the most... they are... I don't know if any Carlton fans would be listening, but their match day experience is the most desperate attempt to try and prove that they're still a big club that you will ever see. The hovercraft, a couple of years ago, they had like pyro that almost blew up a kid, except an MCG attendant that pulled the kid out of the way at the last minute. It's just ridiculous. Like, I thought St Kilda's was a bit low rent on the weekend, but just wait for a couple of
that
weeks.
Hovercraft a couple of years ago, that's one of the worst things I've ever seen at a football match. And the noise that it made was absolutely disgraceful, that
it's
it
just
should
like
be allowed to do
desperately
burnouts
where's
on the
club.
sacred turf of the MCG.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for that. It actually, that's what I like about away games. Now that we're not allowed to have people, breaking their neck, pulling screamers down anymore.
Oh, so what happened with that? Has that been canned as a result of that?
There was a rumour file, 3AW rumour file that's been given the boot. So we've got a few weeks before we play a home game at the G again. So I guess they can run it past the legal department.
So Robbo's got to come up with something new. I believe when he was on this podcast, I don't think you interviewed him, Grapevine. I think Whispering Jack was on that day. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just having a false memory of making my own fake news. But I thought he said he came up with that. So yeah.
Well, as we saw on Twitter after the incident on Anzac Eve, there actually is a waiver. It was a one-page waiver. It said you can't sue Hames Paints and you can't sue the Melbourne Football Club.
Or Jesse Hogan.
Or Jesse Hogan or Russell Robertson. But it didn't actually mention that you couldn't sue the MCG. So if the man who injured himself is listening, that's my free advice to you.
Wow. We might not be playing
Call no Wiki Carbone. Got a case for it.
The MCG might go bust, and we might be playing all our home games at our new fortress. So
that's my plan.
There you go. Yeah, you go.
The premiership
plan. All right. Oscar McDonald, great in defence again. Lever didn't have a lot of possessions. I liked what he did. I liked him a few times. He came down forward a little bit. Liked some of that. I would have liked him to slot through that goal when he had a shot tight on the boundary. I think he kicked on the full or behind. Tommy McDonald continues to sort of impress, and he's got the straightest kick I've ever seen.
Just does not miss.
I think I saw...
Doesn't make any sense on the historical record, but you're right. It's incredible.
Roosie mentioned it somewhere that he sort of admitted that Tom had a terrible kick when he was in defence, but for some reason when he's in front of goals he can just kick straight.
D. Zephyr asked for our thoughts on Track's goal kicking and says that he noticed he's missed a few during the warm-up also. Petraka last year kicked 26 goals, 6.
And this year?
Is incredibly accurate, and he's kicked 3 goals, 8 this year.
And his first season was quite inaccurate as well. He kicked 12-11, but I think the set shots there was a few botched set shots in that. So he's kind of reverted to the first season. So at least we know he can do it.
Yeah, it's look. I'm still waiting for Track just to absolutely blow apart games, and I think it'll come. I'm patient. 2 players, again, I was a little bit disappointed in this week. I think they were the 2 last week I was disappointed in were first Neil Bullen. I'm not sure what we do there. I think once Viney is back, I think he might be in for a spell. And I wasn't impressed with Tyson either. I think he got a little bit of the ball, but he butchered a lot of it too. So I don't know, guys. What are your thoughts? Am I being harsh or? No,
I'm with you. If Viney and Salem were both playing, that's who I'd be taking out Tyson and Neil Bullen. I know it's controversial on Tyson.
Yeah, he gets a lot of the ball.
People get fired up when you try to drop him. But I agree. I don't think his possessions had great impact.
Yeah.
And that's where you look at a guy who had twice as many handballs as kicks. How many of those handballs had an impact, and how many of them were 1 metre jobs to a bloke who had someone about to tackle him? Kicked a ripper of a goal.
Yeah.
And he's not by any stretch of the imagination a player that I'm going to say we should delist, never play again. Like he's handy, but I just think the stat line possibly oversells his impact a bit.
Someone wrote that if he kicked the ball every time the way he kicks for goal, he'd be a lot better because he can kick a ripper goal, but he's
3 minutes after he kicked that goal, he had the ball in the exact same spot, and he had a couple of seconds to assess what to do, and he kicked it straight to a St Kilda defender in the goal square, and there were just mistakes, too many mistakes like that, where he just turns the ball over or he's too slow to make a decision and gets caught.
I just think he's not essential to this team. He's a handy player. He's good to have for depth, but I don't think he's an essential player. And I see Clint Biscuit says Tyson out isn't controversial, and I agree with that. But you will find there are people who will almost want to punch on with you for having that opinion. It does trigger a few people to suggest that Tyson's not in the best 22.
And look, it's fair to say that he's not in his best position. He's being played on a wing at the moment, where clearly he's a clearance player that should be in the middle. But the fact is, there are better inside players at the moment. Oliver, Brayshaw, Viney and Jones are all going to get a gig in there ahead of him. So, don't know what the future holds for Dom.
And what about Neil Bullen?
No composure, and just very poor disposal and decision making. I know he covers a lot of ground and very good defensively with all his pressure acts, but again, someone who stops scoring chains and opportunities from happening because the link breaks down at Neil Bullen.
I think his confidence is shot.
Yeah.
For looking from afar, I do think it's probably worth it at some point in the near future that he goes back and has a run with Casey. Again, handy player, certainly not trying to kick him out the door, but definitely needs to go back and find some confidence.
Yeah, I thought Harmsy was a lot better this week. I think I was a bit critical of him last week, but I like more of his game this week. Again, impressed with both Fritsch and Spargo. I think they're starting to show a bit, and will keep their places in the team certainly. Who else was I having a look at? Wiedemann. He impressed me a little bit. Not getting a heap of the ball, took an absolute beauty of a mark, and kicked 2 goals and was involved in, I think, another one as well, sort of between the third and fourth quarters. So I think
he's got a good kick on him.
Yeah, he's got a good kick. I think they're just definitely the next 2 weeks they'll persist with him. He'll be in for sure, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of getting the ball to him more. Like if you look at his career stats to date. He never had more than 12 disposals in a game. Usually does pretty well when he gets them. Obviously, good goal kicker, but just that finding how to get the ball. And I guess at Casey, he's playing as more of the focal point up forward. Whereas now you put him in a team with Jones and Hogan, Hogan and McDonald. Sorry, you need to find a role for him there. And there is no doubt about his effort. He's great when the ball's on the ground. It's just a case of getting the ball into his hands more. On the weekend, he only had 3 kicks for 2 goals, and 2 of them were set shots on goal, or the mark and the set shot on goal from the 50. So he's not finding all that much of the ball. You'd probably find Pedersen would be giving us more there, but I think we need to persist with him, again, like you say, for a few weeks at least, to make sure that we're building for next year.
Yeah, I think they're doing, I said last week, they're going down the Oscar McDonald route with him and just playing him.
Well, he also takes a man, and the structure's working at the moment with Hogan, McDonald, Wiedemann and Gawn doing their rotational things. So, absolutely, keep on.
What do you think?
I agree. I don't think it's dropped. I don't think it's costing us anything at the moment.
No.
And what do you think of his ruck work? He had no hit outs. You go with
No,
persist
seemed
with
to
him
be
in the
a
run.
bit away from the ball when I was paying close attention. So, look, he's pretty new to the caper. He's only started this year, so
he's not a ruckman. So
he'll develop in that area too.
I think we're the position we're in, that you take Gorn out, you're really just, it's just a warm body in the middle, as long as they're not thrashed. I don't really think it's going to impact that much. I would probably prefer McDonald do it, but then you lack having him as a target if we get a quick break out. But we all know Max is playing, 95% of the game. So as long as that continues, he doesn't, get injured or slow down as the season goes on, I think we can handle that sort of 5%. Someone else playing in the middle.
Clint Biscuit in the chat room says playing with 3 key forwards is key for us. Wiedemann / Peterson / T. Smith can all play the third tall role, and that's good. And
then you got Gorn just dropping in with some freelance chaos every once in a while to keep the defence on their toes as well. So that's a really great option to have, to be able to just randomly drop him in there too.
Yep.
All right, so we can move on from the game. Just housekeeping in terms of our the Demonland Player of the Year, that scientific best on ground way that we do things. Max Gawn, we've sort of got a clear top 4 at the moment. We've got Gawn, Oliver, Hogan, Jones. Clearly been our best four players for the year. And
that matches the leaderboard on the Alan Jakovich medal on Demon Blog.
There you go.
Those 4 are well clear of everyone else.
So perhaps our method is scientific after all.
Perhaps mine is. Yours is probably more scientific than mine, but it comes out with the same big 4.
Yeah. So I reckon Gorney keeps it up. He'll take home Bluey, I think, this year. But then again, Clayton Oliver can't take him out of that contest. I think Viney's going to find it very hard from here to wrest it away from them. Having a look at our injury list. Not very big at the moment. No big names. With Viney has been he'll be named in the twos this week. What are your thoughts on that, guys? Would you have liked to have played him, or are you happy with what Goodwin said about him today and the reasons they gave?
He's got to come back in the twos. He hasn't played for nearly 10 months. So you can do all the running in the world, and we've got our AFL preparation unit or whatever Goodwin's referring to, the squad that got Tommy ready. But you can't compare those two players. T-Mac had a completely different build-up to Jack. So, particularly the fact that we're playing, a lower-ranked club this week, I think it's the smart move. And even if we're playing a top-ranked club, I would have brought him back through the twos this week.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I was willing to wear it as a test game and not expect too much out of him. But the sane and sensible thing to do, that's probably the more romantic thing, that to rush him straight back in. The same thing to do is to put him through the twos.
Do you think they'll play him the next week against an inferior team as well?
Yeah, I would have thought so. If he gets through the Casey game, are they playing at Casey Fields or one of these other VFL grounds? That's
I think it's at Casey.
Car park.
It's a Casey.
Yeah.
All right. So Salem.
There's grass there.
Salem also will be undergoing I said a fitness test, but I think he's right to go, and just according to Misson and his injury report, and it'll just depend on whether he gets a game this week, and it's I think they might play him this week. Changes for this week. What do you think? Obviously, Viney's not coming in. Do we have any other? There's no other guys injured. So who comes out for possibly Salem? And does Jeffrey Garlett get back in without having done his penance in the twos?
I'd say Neil Bullen out for Salem. I know it's not a straight swap, but I'm sure they can work something out. And on Garlett, no, I wouldn't pick him. Certainly not. I think Hannon, Fritsch, and the forward setup as it is looking quite good at the moment. And again, like the other guys, it's not a write-off. It's not a death sentence. I just think it'd be good if he did come through the VFL with a few good performances. And, Hannon and Fritsch, they might dip as the season goes on as well and give Garlett another chance to get back in.
Great, Viney. Any thoughts on that?
I agree. Salem for A and B. I noticed some people are talking about Hunt potentially getting dropped. I can't see that happening. I think he's been finding a little bit of his run back, which is good, even though some of his disposal has let him down the past couple of weeks. But I think he's getting back into some good form. I'm a little bit more unsure about Garlett. I'm always been a fan and love to see him in the team, and he can kick 5 out of nothing and nowhere. So it's always tempting to put him in, but I'm not sure who would make way for him this week. I don't think Mitch Hannon had a great game.
No.
But I don't know whether Goodwin wants to start doing yo-yos between the ones and the twos, players who are sort of good one week and maybe not so good the next. So we'll wait to see what Simon says.
Yeah, well, it's also we're coming off a 6-day break after 3 games in 12 days, so that might be a consideration. But yeah,
could it be Salem for Vince in that with that sort of thinking that that maybe Vince needs a rest after 3 big games?
Very well could be, but as you said, we've got to wait for Simon Says tomorrow night, and that will tell us what's happening. Moving on from the changes, there's some AFLW news this week. A few players jumping ship. I don't know if you call it jumping ship or they're just taking, going to greener pastures. There's some new clubs in there. There's probably a bit of money being thrown around to some players. But we lost Mel Hickey, Rochelle Cranston, Erin Hoare, and someone else.
Anna Teague.
Anna Teague.
Yeah. They've all left the Ds. Sad to see Rocky go. I liked her. Liked Mel Hickey. She was great. Viney will remember she's a trivia question in the Demon Land podcast land of who was the first interview. So sad to see her go. Great servant of the club, and she was one of the faces of the club for the AFLW for those couple of years. So yeah, sad to see her go.
I mean, we're not missing her for a year because she's going to miss the season.
That's
probably
true.
With the knee injury anyway. But the other factor for her is that, of course, her great uncle was the great Reg Hickey, so she's got family connections to Geelong. So I'm not surprised to see that that she'd go back and finish there. That's probably fitting at a sort of at that emotional level. So all the best of luck to Mel and the others.
I think that what it's going to do to the next season is that the interstate teams, surely this gives them a leg up. That you've got Emma Cooney has gone to North Melbourne, and they're going to be grabbing a few players here and there from all the Victorian teams, whereas the interstate teams are not going to be as badly affected by that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see more. Obviously, Adelaide and Brisbane played in that first grand final. Brisbane played in this grand final. If you see the interstate teams start to really monopolise the top of the ladder, while everyone else sort of levels out a bit, we've probably missed our chance. It's not to say we can't win, but those 2 seasons of narrowly missing out when we had the inaugural side. Now it starts to break up. You lose, certainly with Hickey and Cranston, you lose 2 very experienced players, AFLW very experienced players. The other 2 have played 4 games each this year. But it is a big chunk of our best side. I was about to say best 22, but it's not a.
It's best
not
8.
It's like best 16.
Yes.
How many on the bench? Who knows? But if you look at before Hickey did her knee, that's 3 players from that team that are out the door in one go. So it's a lot of experience to bring in. It'll be interesting to see what we do to cover that. Obviously, a lot of the AFLW drafting at the moment is being done sort of on the vibe of this person is a great netballer or a great basketballer. Bring her in and let's see what happens. There's not that. It'd be interesting to see if they go out and actually try and find a few less fashionable footballers than to fill the experience gap rather than project players.
Yeah, I think we're lucky also that, and look, it's bad. I agree, we've lost some talent, certainly in Hickey and Rocky Cranston, but I think we were lucky to escape with our absolute top shelf talent still intact. The likes of, obviously Daisy's not going to go anywhere, but certainly Karen Paxman and Elise O'Day, and probably also Tegan Cunningham, who certainly showed a lot during this season. So it'd be interesting to see. I think they've expanded too soon. I think they really needed a few more years to bed it down before further diluting the talent pool.
And with another round to come after this, I think. Does Hawthorn or someone comes in
next year, it's in another few years,
Richmond,
I think, isn't it? 2 or 3
Hawthorn
years
or Richmond
down.
or someone come in the year after. So not only do you lose these players now, but then we're going to have another round of this with the Victorian clubs again being flattened out a year later. So I would be having substantial money were I a betting man on the likes of Brisbane and Adelaide, winning this competition over the next couple of years.
Yep.
Interesting. I'll just go back. S. Phoebe in the Demon Land podcast thread actually had a few discussion topics. We've discussed most of them, but one of them he asked about was the upcoming run. We've got Gold Coast, Carlton, Adelaide. Are we playing them in Darwin or in Alice Springs?
Alice.
In Alice. And then Bulldogs and Collingwood before the bye. That's, 5 matches. I'd love to win 4 or 5 of those. Obviously, I'd like to win 5, but coming into the run home after that, after the bye, I think we'd like to get sort of 4 of those, and I think that's achievable.
I think we just got to lock these next 2 away and then go to Alice to play Adelaide and then see where we're at.
Yeah.
Because should we win the next 2, and I'm not getting ahead of myself, we've all seen us.
We are Melbourne supporters. Yeah,
exactly. The idea of winning as favourites 4 times in a row is hard to comprehend in my head. The idea of being favourites 4 times in a row is hard to comprehend. But what I really want to do is get these 2 games and then have a look at us against Adelaide.
Yeah,
weird conditions, different ground, but that's where we'll get a proper look at where we're at. And I wouldn't be, I would still be confident of beating Collingwood, but it's not like you can put it down as what you think is going to be a gimme. Bulldogs more so, probably more likely that we're going to beat them. But the Pies are exceeding expectations so far.
Grapevine, how do you see the next few? Are you just focusing on 1 week at a time?
Ahead. I mean, you can't... it's hard to know what's going to happen from week to week. When we played North, it was marked down as a must-win and should win and definitely will win. But if we were coming up against North this week, well, it'd look like a whole different proposition given their form over the last couple of weeks. So, 1 week at a time for me. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm hanging my hat at the moment on the fact that we beat North Melbourne and they're in the 8 at the moment. So that's...
Yep.
this week, Gold Coast, both Grapevine and myself were actually going to the game. So if there's any Demonlanders going to the game and want to shout us a beer, we'll be there. You excited to venture to the Gabba, Grapevine?
I am. I was there. I think I've been there once before, and saw us lose to Brisbane about 3 or 4 years ago. One of those rare games where Nathan Jones didn't play. So I've checked the weather, and it's a whole darn sight better than what we're going to be having in Melbourne. So it should be a good trip. Hopefully we come home with a 4 points.
I'm very jealous, having been to the other Melbourne Gold Coast game at the Gabba, and I thought, for historical purposes, surely that's never going to happen again. I can tick off that I've been to the only Melbourne Gold Coast game at the Gabba, and here we are, 7 years later. I was almost tempted to go up just to make sure I did 2 out of 2. That was a good day. We won by about 90 points, and I got very sour about us not winning by more. So things have certainly changed over the years.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to go. I have never seen the D's at the Gabba. I've been to a Bulldogs Brisbane game there once, which wasn't very exciting, but be good to see.
That was the first win. I think I saw 3 losses against Brisbane before that, or 2 losses against Brisbane before I thought, well, we've got to win this. I'm going. Surely we're going to beat Gold Coast in their 5th game in club history, and duly we did. And then next week we got thumped by the Eagles in Perth, and I was trying to sack the coach. That's football for you.
That happens every week on
exactly.
Demonland. All right, yeah. So Grapevine and I will be there. Hopefully we do catch up with some Demonlanders at some point. On a story that we were speaking about on the podcast a few weeks ago, Grapevine, do you recall the brouhaha that came up with the Queen's birthday game about the rooms, the premium members' rooms we were talking about? The club's come out with a statement saying an update on their Queen's birthday premium rooms issue. As you may have heard recently, there have been some changes made to the premium member social rooms for the upcoming Queen's birthday game. This was an oversight by the club, and we would like to take the opportunity to apologise for the confusion. The solution has been reached and had support from the function volunteers, is to continue availability for both rooms for premium members, but we ask for premium members to accept that part of the rider room will be used by a long-standing sponsor for a private function on this occasion. Food and bar service will be as normal in the rider room.
Worrying bit of
with Pirate Pete still in attendance. Who's Pirate Pete?
That's what I was wondering. I was wondering. Rude.
Who is Pirate Pete? He sounds actually a bit creepy, to be honest. I don't think I want Pirate Pete at my pre-game function.
Swing in on a big rope.
I'm just looking up who Pirate Pete is. I'm fascinated.
It's good that they've...
When I saw that, I thought, am I being rude asking who Pirate Pete is? Like, is he somebody who everybody knows? And I'm going to sound rude asking who he is, so I'm glad. Well, the first thing on Google is Pirate Pete's potty training.
Potty training.
Toddlers.
Wait, maybe we can play this YouTube clip. There's an ad coming up, so let's mute the ad. But in 2 seconds, we'll skip this ad. Thank you very much.
Pirate Pete's mini golf at the Maru Koala and Animal Park.
This is story time. Pirate Pete's potty training.
This is Pirate Pete. He is a little boy. Pirate Pete wears a nappy underneath his big pirate trousers. He uses nappies to do wheeze and poos in.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that's Pirate.
That's going to be one hell of
that's us when we were playing bruise-free football, isn't it?
That's Pirate Pete. I hope that's the right Pirate Pete, because I have no idea. But I don't think that is the... I don't know, because there's a Pirate Pete it's an Australian website. He's entertainment for children and families. So it might be that Pirate Pete. You can follow him on Twitter if you like.
He's got them, and he's Pirate Pete. If you go on there and go below the potty training video into the website, it is the most 1980s looking website you'll ever see in your life. Like it actually looks like it was made on a Apple IIe.
It does. It looks like that's exactly what it looks like. The animation on that. Welcome aboard, Pirate Pete.
And even the Comic Sans sort of red on a green background in capitals. Unbelievable.
It's a 90s website with 80s animation on it.
Yeah. It's even got the button down the bottom, Safe Surf Rated, the kind of button that you would see on websites in sort of 1998.
Net Nanny or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, George on the outer has clarified. Pirate Pete does the face painting and the balloon sculpting for the kids.
Oh, there you go.
So
no potty training.
Not the toilet training.
Not the toilet training. Maybe the two can team up and do face painting, balloon sculpting and toilet training together. Clint Biscuit wants to know whether he can still bring his cheese platter to this private function, which is a very good question. And you might have to take that one up with a club.
Well, apparently you can bring it everywhere else on the ground. You can just cart your cheese knives through the gates, no problems. No, shouldn't be much unless Pirate Pete's got something to say about it. There shouldn't be too many problems.
That cheese platter set back the stereotype of a Melbourne supporter by a long way.
There was Jack Watts was on AFL Game Day, and I don't usually tend to watch anything with Hamish McLaughlin on it, but when I saw Watts was on it, I watched it, and he tried to do a comparison between Port fans all singing their song and waving their scarves and doing all that silliness, and the Melbourne fan eating the cheese, and like never has a joke died so badly. Watts gave it nothing to his credit. I was hoping you'd actually tell him to get stuffed, but he gave it nothing to his credit. The studio audience gave nothing, none of the other panelists. It was one of those situations where the person who does the joke has to repeat the punchline because they think that everyone's missed it, but everyone had already heard it and they just thought it was rubbish.
It's never a good look when you have to repeat a joke and it still goes down.
It's like having to explain the punchline. You just give up.
Do we even... I've been steering away from Jack Watts' talk on the podcast. I haven't really seen much of his play. I've just been following his stats and they've been quite underwhelming, sort of Jack Watts Melbourne-like, with the exception of 2016.
The interesting thing they had on one of the footy shows last night, on Monday night, I think, and that is that Melbourne is leading the competition in contested ball, and I think Port Adelaide was sitting 16th or 17th for contested ball, and that's not surprising when you look at Watts, Motlop being brought in, and they had a reputation of being downhill skiers prior to those two coming into the club. So I saw one of the footy experts rated all their acquisitions, and Watts got the best mark of the lot of them, and that was a C+. So not really setting the world on fire, and I didn't expect him to. So.
Well, at the end of the trade period last year, they got an A+ for their acquisitions, if I recall correctly, and they've all been very underwhelming. I thought, did I read that Rockcliffe was playing in the twos the other week? So, yeah,
that's where Jack Drengove is too. So,
well, that I'm not surprised about. But
is he still kicking around?
Is he on their list still?
I think he is, because I think they've got the four horsemen of the Melbourne 2013 apocalypse going around at the same time. Watts, Barry, Trengove, and Tompus all in the same list.
Well,
but look, I think we've moved on from Watts. I think the excitement when he had a really good game in the first game was a bit OTT, just because he'd had a few good first games of the season for us that hadn't been followed up. And probably around the Hawthorn-Richmond games, I was sort of pondering whether maybe having him there would have helped. But you take McDonald, put him in there, and I think we've got that forward line to the point where we just need to get the ball to them. They'll know what to do if we can get the ball to them.
And look, I've been more excited about Fritsch in these few games than I have been about Jack. So, yeah, I'm happy with that sort of trade-off at the moment. Yeah,
I haven't thought of him once during our games this year. Not at any stage have I thought, gee, I wish Jack was still out there. And that's really the measure, isn't it? Whether you're missing him or not what he's doing for Port.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't thought much about him either. Anything else, fellas? Anything you'd like to bring up before we wind down for the evening?
Oh, no, not for me. I'll be on the couch on Saturday afternoon. Probably not on the couch, more hovering over my TV and yelling at it. But yes, enjoy the Gabba. I'm sure it's going to be an absolute friends and family atmosphere in the crowd. There won't be too many Gold Coast fans there, let alone the ones trekking down to Brisbane or up to Brisbane, whichever direction it's in. So we might actually get the crowd numbers in our favour.
I was just about to think, between the cheer squad and Grapeviney and myself, we might outnumber the Gold Coast fans. That'll be interesting, actually, to see what crowd they get there.
The one, it is obviously 7 years ago, and the one I went to, there was an enormous stack on of school kids. And they couldn't care less. They'd obviously all been given free tickets. And had no idea what they were watching, but I think that helped get people going.
It's the old tried and trusted method, isn't it? Get the school kids and get the oldies in as well. Bus them in.
Yep.
So it's a 4:35 game, I believe. So that'll be interesting too in terms of crowd for that. I don't think it's. I don't know. It's on a Saturday though, so. Better than a 4:30 on a Sunday. All right, Grapeviney, anything else from you?
Nope.
No,
I'm done. Yep,
you're done. Supermercado, you want to plug your Twitter? I'll highly recommend following this guy. Very entertaining.
I'll give you the trifecta of plugs. You've got the Twitter at DemonBlog.
Yep.
You've got demonblog.com for the actual blog. And, of course, demonwiki.org for all your NQR statistical purposes for the Melbourne Football Club. I just had an email today from someone who played in the 1980 scholarship squad giving me details for his profile. So it's always a winner. So if you're listening out there and you played reserves or under 19s or anything, definitely get in contact with us because we want your story.
I've got a feeling that Andy's brother might have played in one of those squads. As a junior, was it the Robbie Flowers squad?
Yeah, he played in one of those. I can't remember which one, but yeah, he did. I'm on the demonwiki.org page, and I always love the random images. Is there a way for me to identify who it is on the image? I've got the image name is Bryce JPG, but it's not the Bryce who was Paul Bryce we used to have, but it's not him. It's a guy with a nice mullet in a Drake adorned footy jumper. So no,
I've got obviously got a different random image.
Yeah.
I've got Rodney Grinter being pulled up from a seated position by a hand where you can't see who it's connected to. Well, he's got a funny look on his face.
Well,
I don't know how typing Bryce into the search is giving me so many funny pictures of Rod Grinter.
I've got the 1994 team photo, but it's the relaxed version where the players have got their hands on each other's shoulders and they're kind of chilling out.
That Darren Cowell at the front has got his, you almost see his plums.
Yes.
And a rare sighting of Ivan Bartul.
Yes.
Yeah. But yes, demonwiki.org, get on it.
Yeah,
lots of good info in there.
Definitely. All right. I think we'll end the show there, and we'll let Supermercado listen to this fabulous song one more time. Did you, after the last appearance on this podcast, did you go and search out the song on YouTube and have a look at the video that accompanies it?
I watch that video about once a week.
Great.
The highlight being Ricky Jackson being stuffed in a locker, climbing out.
Yes.
In second place, Andy Lovell chopping down a goalpost with an axe.
I was just about to mention that. I actually had I posted that this on Facebook earlier on in the year, and I actually had the relatives of the trainer. There's a trainer who's massaging someone, and he looks up into the distance, dreaming
He's a
about
famous
a
old
Premiership
trainer. That
Yeah.
guy.
And he sees the Premiership Cup.
That's right. His family contacted me and said thank you for posting that. They were wrapped, and I organised to get it downloaded for them and sent it to them so they could send it to other family members.
I think it's Glenn Lovett
story.
who's the recipient of the rub.
Yes, I think it is. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us, Grapeviney. Thank you, Supermercado. Thank you to Chris, who called in, and Don't Make Me Angry, who also called in. We really appreciate hearing other Demonlanders. Go D's, and we'll be back next week. Same time, same place.
Thanks, gents.
Thank you.
We got the skill, we got the thrill.